My mother, a strong woman with a clear mind, began to complain about her memory deteriorating. She took vitamins, did crosswords, listened to lectures on aging, but nothing helped. Until one day I came across a book written by a Japanese master named Katsuzo Nishi. He claimed that memory does not age, it simply falls asleep, and most importantly, it can be awakened. But you know what the saddest thing is? Many people simply accept forgetfulness as inevitable, lose memories, lose themselves, and don't even try to fight it. If you don't want to be one of them, keep watching this video. It could be a turning point for you. The Secrets of Long Life channel was created specifically for such conscious changes. Subscribe and support us. Link in the description. Your response is the most valuable support. The most disturbing thing is that this is only the beginning of the deception that we have been told since childhood. With age, the brain inevitably weakens, and we prepare ourselves in advance for oblivion, as if this were an integral part of aging. But what if this is a deception? What if the reason is not in the years lived, but in the way we live? I had the opportunity to talk to an elderly professor who supported this idea. On the train, a ugh came into my head, and it stuck. I haven't forgotten how to think. I just haven't tried for a long time. That simple thought is the whole point. Our brain doesn't break. It just switches off. It can be compared to a musical instrument that sits in the corner, covered in dust, but the melody is still inside. All that's left is to start playing. Katsuzo Nishi claimed that the brain is capable of changing at any age, but only if it is not kept in the prison of monotony. We say that it goes into hibernation, when life becomes predictable, and a day is like a day. The route repeats itself, and thoughts go in circles. But there is something even more frightening. Most people do not just believe the myth of brain aging, they live by it. They stop challenging themselves, stop learning and wondering, and at that point, their memory begins to fade. Why does no one discuss this fact? Why do we continue to look for vitamins and drugs instead of facing the truth? After all, the danger is much more serious and simpler. We ourselves are ruining our memory with our habits. This is only the beginning, because there are hidden enemies of memory that undermine your brain every day. Many are convinced that reading, eating nuts, and solving crosswords are enough to preserve memory. But these are superficial measures. They do not eliminate the real causes of the slow destruction of the brain. These enemies do not look like diagnoses, but their impact is noticeable and dangerous. The consequences of these factors are no less serious. Katsuzo Nishi called them silent killers of memory, and therefore the first pose and breathing are of great importance. Imagine that your brain is a tree, and blood is its water. When you sit for hours with your head down and do not move, it seems that you are blocking the root's access to water. Oxygen supply is inadequate, neurons begin to fall asleep, and you don't even notice how your attention is scattered, and a simple thought slips away like smoke. I've seen it affects people. One man came to the clinic complaining of forgetfulness. Instead of medication, he was offered to change his body position every 30 minutes, take deep breaths, and stretch upwards. After a few weeks, he admitted that for the first time in a year, he felt light in his head. The second enemy is monotony. You will be surprised how lazy the brain is. During the day, it constantly receives the same information, without remembering anything new, simply turning off the unnecessary. This is how both the body and the psyche react to predictability when the brain stops learning. If it stops learning, the same thing happens as with muscles that are not being exercised. The third enemy is information noise and stress. This is especially dangerous because a person is often not aware of it. Constant background tension, phone calls, news flashes, racing thoughts, all of this overloads the brain. It stops distinguishing between the important and the unimportant and spends energy not on memorization, but on survival. That is why even young people complain of brain fog. I once asked, an elderly woman who complained of memory loss asked herself how many times a day she simply inhaled silently. She thought she did it more than once. And that was the problem. What if there was a way to not only eliminate the causes of forgetfulness, but to activate the brain at a deep level, and not temporarily, but forever? One person has already gone this way, and his name was Katsuzo Nishi. Let's take a closer look at the amazing fate of a man who proved that the brain can be awakened at any age. The forgotten master, Katsuzo Nishi, was born a weak child. Doctors did not believe that he would live to adulthood. Illness, weakness, limitations, everything from childhood told him that he would not be able to survive. However, Katsuzo Nishi not only survived, he became a symbol of inner strength. He was not a doctor, monk, or scientist in the usual sense. He was an engineer of his body and mind, who proved that a person is capable of rebuilding himself if he begins to live consciously. In his youth, he watched his loved ones suffer not only from physical ailments, but also from a decline in spirit. People lost interest in life, energy, and clarity of thought, but he did not accept this as inevitable. Katsuzo Nishi began to study ancient Eastern and modern Western approaches to health. Everything he found, he tested on his own experience, spending years creating a system that can be called awakening from within. This awakening is not controlled by pills or drugs, but by understanding how exactly you live, Nishi believed. If you want, maintain your memory, starting with your posture, then moving and breathing, disconnecting from everything unnecessary. This is how you can activate the most important thing, consciousness. Katsuzo Nishi did not teach methods for memorizing lists. He did not give ready-made techniques for memorization. He created conditions in which the brain comes to life on its own. His approach was much deeper. It affected energy channels, the state of the body, and the fullness of breathing. Katsuzo Nishi knew how to look at a person as a whole and notice that the fading of memory is a signal that development has stopped. In one of his works, he wrote that memory does not die. It simply fades into the shadows when the soul stops striving for something new. His method was not a system of control, but a system of awakening. I read the memoirs of his students. One elderly man told me that at the age of 68, he learned a new language using Nikishin's techniques. Another spoke about how, after many years of depression, he began to draw and remember dreams better. They did not become geniuses, but they regained the clarity that they had seemingly lost forever. This is not magic, but an internal decision to live differently. But what practices allowed these people to regain mental clarity so quickly? Just 7 days, not months or years. Just 7 days is enough to feel your brain come alive. Katsuzo Nishi was sure that it was enough to create the right conditions and memory would be activated. On Bobo Street, you need to do one simple but unusual action every day, and changes will begin to happen immediately. By day 3, most people notice that their thoughts are clearer, their attention is more focused, and their energy feels cleaner. On day 1, when you break a habit, you create what is called chaos. For example, brush your teeth with the other hand, put your shoes on in an unusual order, or take a new route to the store, disabling autopilot. It's like turning on the light in a room where no one has been for a long time. The brain begins to carefully scan what's happening, attention is heightened, and memory is awakened. On the second day, it is worth paying attention to the little things. Did you notice today what color the wallpaper was in the drugstore? Which hand the product was handed to you? What the counter or the salesperson looked like? A retired friend of mine started playing a game. Every day he remembered 5 new objects in familiar places. After a month, for the first time in many years, he had a clear memory of where his keys were. Such observations help train attentiveness. On the third day, it is useful to go back in time and remember in detail one day from your childhood. Where were you? What were you wearing? What smells were around you? Perhaps you were sitting on the kitchen stove in the summer, or heard the clicking of a gas stove, or remembered the smell of school notebooks in early September. This exercise activates ancient neural connections in the brain, not just improving memory, but also strengthening the sense of self. Its power is much greater than it seems at first glance. On the fourth day, it is worth paying attention to the body and performing simple movements that require coordination. Draw different figures with different hands. Walk around the room, pronouncing words backwards. These small exercises help improve the connection between thoughts and movements, which has a positive effect on the overall condition and activity of the brain. It is difficult, and that is when the brain starts working harder. Because the task is unusual, it cannot do it automatically. At this point, it turns on at full power. On the fifth day, the brain experiences a hunger for information. Turn off the TV, leave the phone in another room. Spend the day in silence or in nature without news and social media feeds. Just you, your breath, and the space around you. At such moments, the brain does not rest. It reboots, organizes information, and frees up internal memory space. On the sixth day, it is worth acquiring new knowledge. It can be a word in a foreign language, a new recipe, or a dance element. It does not matter what exactly. The main thing is that it is absolutely new. The brain that receives something fresh responds with clarity and gets to work. As soon as you start, you will feel the return of the young thinking. Day 7 is for complete rest without screens, without talking about problems and stress before sleep. This is not just a dream. This is the phase of knowledge consolidation. During sleep, the brain does not rest, but processes, sorts, and strengthens memory. If there is not enough time for this, memories collapse like a house of cards. These exercises are simple but effective because they are not just a mental load, but a new life logic in which the brain does not forget, but lives. Surprisingly, most will not even try to go through at least the first day. If you have read up to this point and already feel a response inside, write in the comments which of these is closest to you. If you start tomorrow, you will feel the changes in 7 days. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so and support the Conscious Cognition channel using the link in the description. Your support helps us to dive deeper into topics that really spark interest. Pay attention, because below, we will tell you why most people never take action, despite knowing the truth. The truth is that even with knowledge, people continue to live on autopilot, complain about forgetfulness, blame age, buy vitamins, and hope that everything will somehow improve on its own. However, nothing will change, because it is much easier to wait than to take steps, and established habits are stronger than common sense. I remember a woman I met at a seminar. Her eyes were shining, but there was weariness in her voice. She said, "I understand everything. I even wrote down everything you are telling me, but I am afraid to start. What if I fail?" This fear is paralyzing. It is unnoticeable, but very dangerous because it is fear that robs us of a chance for the best. People are afraid not only of the new, they are afraid of disappointing themselves, afraid to admit that years have been wasted, afraid to see how much energy they have wasted. But you know what the worst thing is? Not trying at all, not giving yourself at least a chance. Because then your memory will start to fade, not because of age, but because you will stop creating something new inside yourself. Many people don't believe that the brain can be awakened. They tell themselves that it's too late for them, that they are not one of those who are capable of change, or that they simply don't have enough time. But this is a misconception. There is a simple law. The brain is always ready for change. It just needs a certain signal. I have met people who gained clarity of mind at the age of 0, and I have seen those who have already lost themselves by the age of 50. The difference between them is not in biology, but in choice. Now you have information that far from 95% of people have. There is only one question left. What will you do with this knowledge? If you are still watching this video and feel something important for yourself in these thoughts, write in the comments which day of the 7-day ritual seemed the most significant to you. Memory is just the tip of the iceberg. When the brain awakens, not only is the ability to remember activated, clarity returns, energy appears, and the ability to perceive meaning appears. I remember a man who came to me after a severe emotional burnout. He had once been an engineer, solving complex problems and managing projects, and now he couldn't even concentrate on reading the instructions and said, "I don't recognize myself." We started with simple things: breathing, movement, conscious habits. A few weeks later, he called and said, "Wow, I started thinking again, not just remembering, namely, to think, to reason as before. But this is not a miracle. This is a return to oneself. The entire internal mechanism is launched. We begin to understand people better, to feel the world in a new way, feeling better exactly where we really want to be, and also realizing that it is time to let go of the past. Intuition becomes sharper, anxiety goes away. We stop living in constant tension and begin to live each moment from the inside. As Katsuzo Nishi says, when energy circulates freely, the mind works most clearly. These are not just words. This is part of the solar awakening of consciousness, when the rest of the energy begins to actively move. This is why people who mastered simple techniques noted not only an improvement in memory, but also the emergence of new sensations in life. Someone parted with a toxic job. Someone restored broken relationships. And someone woke up in the morning with a feeling of joy for the first time in many years. Awakening. The brain is not just a method for better memorization, but a way to return to a living state in which each day feels like a part of something bigger. Even small things become meaningful, and you realize not only who you were before, but also who you are capable of becoming. If you recognize yourself in this story, write in the comments what it means to you to wake up for real. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do so and support our channel using the link in the description. Your support helps us spread practices that awaken inner strength and meaning in everyone. And the most important thing I would like to emphasize in the end: many people consider memory to be something unchangeable all their lives, like eye color or height, and they think that with age it inevitably weakens and nothing can be done about it. This is a misconception, because memory can be developed and preserved, and conscious practices can restore clarity and liveliness of thoughts. But it's a mistake to think of memory as a static organ. It lives and changes, responding to how you build your life. Think about what you allow your attention to be directed to, and most importantly, what occupies your mind. Memories can return, but for this you need to take a step forward. Don't wait, don't hope, and don't put it off for later. Just start with one simple action. It could be a change of route, conscious breathing, or an evening in silence. Sometimes it's these small discoveries that give us strength. We learn how body position affects memory, how stress blocks oxygen to the brain, how new tasks awaken old neural connections. This is not a theory, but a path available to anyone who is ready to stop existing in survival mode and choose conscious awakening. Remember, your memory is not the past. It is a tool for working with the future, a proven ability, not a burden of memories. If you listen and understand how important this is, write in the comments which of the methods you will start using today. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel Conscious Cognition, Do so by clicking on the link in the description. Support our work. This will give us the opportunity to create awakening and empowering content. Thank you for choosing awareness. Memory is only the first step. Further, we will dive deep. Do not miss it. Imagine a situation where you suddenly can't remember the name of the person you were talking to just yesterday, or forget why you entered the room. More and more often, you notice that you lose the thread of the conversation, forget basic things. You think that this is just an age-related change. But what if the reason is not in years, but in something else? And what if it is you yourself who are gradually turning off your abilities?